Hello. Thanks for taking a beat. My name is Katie, and I'm a licensed therapist and coach who helps people feeling stressed and overwhelmed to create more balance and fulfillment in their lives. Today's episode explores authentic storytelling and how it can be a tool to help people find their voice. Many of us fear public speaking or getting up in front of a group of people, whether large or small, and being our full, authentic selves. Self-doubt and the inner critic can quickly creep in and tell us all of the terrible things that could happen. But finding your voice and being able to communicate authentically can be a key to building self-confidence and feeling more comfortable in your own skin. To help explore this topic further, I talked to Dr. Danny Brassell, a speaker, trainer, and coach who has spoken to more than 3,500 audiences around the world. He's also the co-founder of the Well-Crafted Story Workshop, which helps entrepreneurs, individuals, and organizations leverage speaking on stages as a major client lead source that converts. He also happens to be a former inner city teacher, co-founder of the world's leading reading engagement and program, and the author of 19 books. I hope you enjoy the interview, as well as Danny's tips and strategies for crafting your own story. I guess then maybe to get started, I'm curious to know, like, how did you kind of discover this passion for speaking and communication?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on, Katie. I appreciate that. I actually didn't always love speaking. I was actually speaking to a school in India back in 2018. I got all these kids pumped up, and they were coming up to me afterwards, talking to me. And then I see this little boy. He's got tears in his eyes. He's looking up at me. He's like 6 years old, and I notice he's missing his left arm. He says, "How can I succeed?" And so I crouch down to his eye level and I say, when I was your age, I went to 18 different schools before I was 12 years old. Everybody used to call me stupid because I stuttered. And eventually I went to a school where a teacher worked one-on-one with me and she would sing things to me. And I found I could sing them back without my stutter, kind of like the movie The King's Speech. And eventually I lost my stutter and I became a swan. But I looked in that boy's eyes. I'm like, isn't it interesting that the little boy people used to make fun of and call stupid because he couldn't speak right now gets paid ridiculous sums of money to travel the world to do what? And he gets the biggest grin on his face. He's like, speak. I'm like, don't let anybody ever tell you what you can't do. Anything is possible. And so that's what I would say to anybody out there who's struggling with speaking or looking for their voice. And that's why I love working with people that are looking for their voice.
I'm guessing you work with a lot of people who do kind of struggle to find their voice or maybe struggle with self-doubt when speaking, whether to large groups or one-on-one. Do you see common themes with that, or do you have common advice for things, in that area?
Yeah, so I've worked with actually, the reason I started coaching was some pretty big name people and companies asked me to work with them, which I resisted for a long time, Katie, because it's the same reason I left teaching is I have a very high standard for my students. I will not let you fail, and I will hold you accountable and be on your back until you succeed. Well, now that I work with entrepreneurs and executives and business owners, I find that they're highly motivated and they do the work, which is awesome. But most of the people I work with, they either have no interest in speaking on stages or they're completely horrified working on stages. And so I love that's the greatest satisfaction I have is working with people on, I always tell people there's only two ways to get better at speaking. First of all, you have to watch lots of speakers. I mean, I watch 10 speakers a day. I watch politicians. I watch comedians. I watch televangelists. I watch them in front of big groups, in front of small groups, in front of men, in front of women. Here, I'll give your audience a ninja strategy. I watch a lot of televised award shows because when the person wins the Academy Award, they only have 45 seconds to connect with their audience. Now, most people, they waste their time. They get up there, they're like, I want to thank God, I want to thank the Academy. It's stupid. Nobody's paying attention. But every now and then, a person does a superior job. So for a couple of years ago, there was a gentleman by the name of Joe Walker who won the Academy Award for Best Film Editing. Now, this is Hollywood, Katie. All the important people are in the front of the room, the actors. And you can see they don't care. It's film editing. They're not paying attention. And Joe Walker, he gets up on stage. He's British. He speaks very slowly and distinctly. He says, a lot of people don't know this, but when phrased properly, the term Academy Award nominee can be used as an insult. Well, now the camera's scanning the audience. You see people leaning in like, what's he talking about? And he says, for example, yesterday I got in an argument with my 17-year-old daughter, and she said, well, Academy Award nominee Joe Walker. All of a sudden, you see everybody start laughing. He gets off stage. Denzel Washington wants to meet him. Sandra Bullock wants to meet him. Brad Pitt wants to meet him. Time magazine said it was one of the highlights of the Academy Awards. That's the power of connecting with an audience within 45 seconds. The second way you get better at speaking is I've been blessed to have lots of wonderful coaches throughout my career. And one of my coaches was a guy by the name of Jim Rohn. And Jim used to say, you can't pay other people to do your push-ups. Translation, you got to do the reps. I mean, even the smallest towns have Lions Club, Rotary Club, Optimist Club, Kiwanis Club. They got schools, they got churches, synagogues, temples, chambers of commerce. You got to get out there and speak. I was working with a client about 3 years ago, Jason, 22 years old, and Jason was a negative Nelly. Oh, I don't know anybody. I can't get on stages. Wah, wah. I can't stand people like that. So finally, I said, well, do you have a Facebook account? He's like, yeah. I'm like, let's go. We're going on right now, Facebook Live. He gets all frightened. And I made him, we had just put together his 45-minute talk. He gets on Facebook Live. One woman from Ontario, Canada, accidentally watched him. And guess what, Katie? He stunk. And I made him do it again the next day. I didn't watch him the next day. He said three people watched him and he stunk, but he didn't stink as bad as he did the first day. Well, here's why I always use Jason as an example. He's gone on Facebook Live every single day consistently for the last 3 years, including Christmas. He
Wow.
now has 6,000 people in his Facebook community. And last year he sold them almost $1 million worth of merchandise, which is what he's all excited about. And I'm happy for him for that. But the reason I use him as an example is what excites me about him is he did the work. And so I love working with people like Jason because he actually did the work and now he's reaping all of the rewards for which he sowed.
Well, good for Jason.
That's right.
To go back to Joe Walker for a second and to kind of break that example down in your perspective, what did he do that kind of captivated the room?
Yeah, I think that how a lot of people are teaching people how to speak is entirely wrong. Most people I see, they say that to connect with an audience, you have to talk about the most traumatic moment of your life. And there's three reasons why I don't do that, Katie. I mean, first of all, the world just survived a global pandemic. Everybody's had a lot of bad stuff happen to them. I don't think we need more sad stories. I think we need more stories of hope. Now, if you have a happy ending, that's different. But a lot of people just go on and on, like it sounds like a bad country western song. Secondly, what I'm teaching people how to do is how to create what I call a well-crafted story. Politicians would call it a stump speech. Superhero movies, they call it your origin story. You can call it peanut butter and jelly. What this is a story, this is a presentation that you're going to deliver again and again to introduce yourself to new audiences. Do you really want to talk about the most traumatic time of your life again and again and relive that? I mean, I've got a friend, his daughter was killed in a school shooting. He's told that story over 1,000 times. I could never tell a story like that. It'd kill me. I have no idea how he does it. And third, and this is where people get angry with me, I have one objective when I'm on stage. I want you to leave feeling better than when you came in. I want you laughing, smiling, happy. I think that there's something admirable about that as a goal. And so the direct answer to your question of what Joe Walker did is he got people to laugh. Most people don't try and get that laugh. And the way he was able to get the laugh was the easiest way to get a laugh was it was self-deprecation. He made fun of himself. I was recently working with a whole team of engineers at a major company in Silicon. By the way, whenever I mention my clients, I don't give the real names of the companies or the people because I believe in discretion. But I was working with these engineers, and one of the engineers are kind of introverted people. And I was working with one Indian gentleman, and he's like, Danny, please, you've got to make me funny. I need to connect with my audience. And so all we did is he has a very difficult name to pronounce. I'm not going to give you his real name. So now he starts his presentation. He says, hello, my name is Shubhankar Majahardeen. Gee, I sure hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And I'm not teaching him to be a stand-up comedian. I'm just teaching him, here's a way. Now people are all going to smile and nod. Oh, this guy doesn't take himself too seriously. And that's all you have to do to connect with an audience. And that's the most important thing is when you're on stage, you're trying to get your audience to see themselves in you. The biggest mistake I see that most people make in presentations is they brag all the time. I'm a big believer in what one of my favorite speakers is Brene Brown, and she talks about the importance of vulnerability. And I completely agree with her on that. Stop talking about your successes. Start talking about your failures because not everybody in your audience has succeeded, but they've all failed. And the more you reveal your own failures, the more your audience is going to see themselves in you. And that's how you truly build a meaningful connection with your audience.
So self-deprecation and being open to being vulnerable and sharing success, but also failure, like the real part of you.
Absolutely. I mean, I have a friend, he coaches people on how to be authentic, and I always give him a hard time. I'm like, if you have to coach them on how to be authentic, maybe they're not really authentic. That's why I hate social media. Everybody puts their best foot forward. I can tell you, I've worked with some very successful people where you just uh, uh, unwrap a couple of layers from the onion and they're borderline suicidal. There's a lot of people that look like they have their act together and they don't. And I think it's a shame that they feel like they always have to show what's right. I'd rather see them showing a picture of after they yelled at their kids for not doing their homework, or their hair's all messed up in the morning. That's real to me. I don't find anything real about a person doing a dance video on the beach from their latest vacation.
How do you help people? I mean, being authentic in front of a lot of people can be really intimidating, scary. Even if you are authentic sort of in your own personal life, how do you kind of work with people to sort of take off shields essentially that they might put up in front of a lot of people?
Yeah, so I co-founded a company with I already mentioned Coach Jimmy Hayes Nelson and Dave Ward. I always call us the professor, the performer, and the producer because my background's academia. Coach Jimmy was a Broadway actor, and Dave, he's a former attorney and AI specialist from Silicon Valley, and we all bring different elements to what we do. When I'm taking people through the process of creating a presentation, Jimmy, you have to bear with me. I used to be a teacher. Everything has to either rhyme or it's alliterative. And so we came up with the 5 C's process. And it's all, again, all in the reps to help people on this. So before you write any of your presentation, you need clarity. And then once we get into your presentation, we're going to show you how to connect with your audience, how to deliver meaningful content that serves your audience, how to have one clear call to action, and then finally ending with an emotional close that's going to get people to stampede to want to work with you. And so here's a little ninja strategy. This is an activity I do with my clients. This will serve your audience. Is you can do this later on, Katie. Sit down in a comfortable chair with a pen and paper, libation of choice, and for an hour, I want you to write down every story that's ever happened to you. And I don't mean the entire story, I just mean triggers, like the time I locked myself out of the car in front of Costco, the time dad spilt mustard on his tie at that fancy restaurant. You'll find in an hour you can come up with hundreds of stories with no problem. So that's the first part of the exercise. The second part of the exercise is then I want you to think about what's this story really about? Oh, this is a story about never giving up. Oh, this is a story about building trust. This is a story about love. And so another problem I see in a lot of presentations is people tell fun stories, but there's really no point to them. You want the story to actually move your audience to the action that you want them to take. And so the way you get people comfortable telling their personal stories is you shape it as, well, this is an anecdote to get my audience to do this. I'm a big fan of this guy named Donald Miller has a wonderful company called Story Brand. And I completely agree with Donald. He says that when you're on stage, your job is to be the guide, and you have to portray your audience as the hero. So you're Ben Kenobi, your audience is Luke Skywalker, you're Mr. Miyagi, and your audience is Daniel LaRusso. And I mean, people always ask me, how do you sell from stage without feeling salesy? Well, I'll give you a ninja strategy. Stop selling, start serving. You got to look at your audience like they are dying. You have the antidote. And if they don't get your antidote, they will die. And so you have to, whether a person's decides to take the next step with you or not, you have a responsibility to help the people in your audience. And so it totally transformed my business. When I was selling, I wasn't selling anything. Now that, I mean, I go on 6 or 7 business calls a day. And when I'm meeting people, all I'm trying to think about is what can I do to help this person right now that can improve their outcomes. I mean, a lot of them choose to work with me in the future. That's great. But even if they don't choose to work with me, I feel a lot better at night because I'm like, oh, I got to meet this fascinating person and I solved this problem and this problem and this problem. That's how you truly have an impact on society. And it also impacts your business in a positive way as well.
And how have you seen like people that you've worked with? How do you see their maybe belief in their self or their self-confidence kind of shift when they become more comfortable with just communicating authentically?
Yeah, this is also another reason, Katie, why I like to use humor because humor is a great way. I want my clients having fun when they're on stage. A lot of them are terrified or they just don't want to do it. And so if I make it fun, human beings only are drawn towards things that they enjoy. So I want you enjoying yourself. Jimmy and I were working with a financial planner named Richard. And Richard, he used to start off his presentation. My name is Richard. I've been in the industry for 30 years. I've made my clients over $1 billion. I've worked with this famous person and this famous person. I said, time out, Richard. What are the three most important elements of real estate? Location, location, location. It's all right to brag, but you're doing it in the wrong part of your presentation. And so we recrafted his opening connection story. So now he talks about the very first client that he landed 30 years ago. And it's this comedy of errors. He made one mistake after another. I mean, I still, Katie, to this day, I have no idea why this person invested money with Richard. But this was the interesting thing that Richard noted immediately. So the way he gets clients is twice a week, he has these free presentations for about 15 couples in their 50s at a steakhouse. They get a free steak dinner, but they're forced to listen to him for an hour. And he said that it used to be with his old story, he noticed, I mean, this is going to sound stereotypical, but this is what he noticed is usually the husband is sitting there with his arms folded, like, what's this going to cost me? What do I got to do? How long is this going to take? Well, now that he's changed the story, he noticed that the same guy is patting his knee. He's laughing so hard, which is great. But here's the only measure I use to measure that we're being successful with your presentation. Of the 15 couples, he used to average six of them would book a consultation. They'd come to his office afterwards. Now that he's changed the story, 12 of the 15
Oh,
are
wow.
booking a consultation. And so, we want to create a presentation that moves hearts, but it also has to move the needle. I mean, we do live in a capitalist society. You can serve a lot more people if you're earning income, and there's nothing to be ashamed of to earn more money. So those are just some of the little strategies we're sharing with people. And again, that's why I like humor. I mean, you can use a sad story, but even the people I've worked with that tell sad stories, I like to insert some humor into those sad stories so that people have a chance to breathe and nod. And there has to be a happy ending because I mean, that's just the way I want to run my business. I'm sick of sad stories. I want happy endings.
It's sometimes maybe more difficult even to tell a happy story and tell it in a way that authentically connects with people and isn't like maybe overly positive.
Yeah, I mean, you can do one of my favorite speakers is a guy, his real name is George Campbell. His stage name is Joe Malarkey. He's so smart, Katie. He markets himself as the worst motivational speaker in America. And so he gets on, companies will hire him. He says, they say work hard. I say, that sounds way too hard for me. I don't want to work hard. And, he gives all this advice. And so he's doing a lot of jokes. And what I like about with him is towards the end of his speech, he does something masterful. Is he decides to teach a very serious teaching point, but then he still ends it with humor. So he says something like, Thomas Edison. Somebody once pointed out to him. He wrote down in his memoir that somebody pointed out to him that you have failed to come up with a light bulb. You failed 10,000 times. And Henry Ford in his journal wrote, I have not failed 10,000 times. I have found 10,000 ways not to make a light bulb. Then he pauses and he says, at least we think that's what he wrote. He was writing in the dark. I love that. He made a great serious point about the importance of failure, but then he still ended on a high. I just like it's kind of like for me watching movies. I like movies that end with all the main characters are like at a dance and you're hearing their conversations and there's positive things happening. I'm like, gosh, like my big fat Greek wedding. I challenge anybody who's miserable to watch my big fat Greek wedding and be miserable. I mean, it's just one of the funniest things. It's just lighthearted and it's very, anybody can connect to it. This is actually an important point, Katie. I mean, I'm working with a guy right now who he's climbed the highest peak on each continent. He did the Iditarod to the North Pole. He swam with sharks in Madagascar. I look at him, I'm like, nobody in your audience can relate to you. Nobody in your audience has climbed Mount Everest. Everybody thinks they need spectacular stories to connect. I'm like, no, no, no. It's exactly the opposite. It's it's the everyday that helps you connect. I mean, my big fat Greek wedding, the John Corbett character, he's like, so what? You've got a weird family. Everybody has a weird family. He's right. Everybody has the weird quirks in their family. Everybody peed their pants in first grade. Everybody felt awkward at a middle school dance. When you can tell stories like this, that's when you're going to start getting people to nod. And so here's a ninja strategy I like to share with clients. I always say, stop filming yourself on stage. Film your audience. They're going to tell you everything you need. If you see a lot of people nodding and leaning in, you're onto something. If they're just sitting there on their phone, they're bored. You got to change something. And so that's what I'm constantly monitoring is I'm looking at what's my audience? What are they responding to? How can I get a bigger response? And again, I think humor is the best way. They kind of talk about it in the movie Inception with Leonardo DiCaprio. So the premise of the movie is he's trying to implant a memory in this businessman's head so that he'll change his business. And one of his colleagues is like, well, why don't you put in a negative memory? And he has a line, and a lot of people miss the line. He says, oh, no, no. I always put in a positive memory because a positive memory always trumps a negative memory. The human brain's kind of fascinating. Uh, Experiences are more powerful than possessions. You could buy a brand new Ferrari, and then you could take the worst trip you've ever taken in your life. And 10 years later, you won't really think a lot about the Ferrari, but you'll think fondly about that trip that you had one miserable experience after another, and people are just loving the story about your misery and everything. There's power. It's the story. I have never, Katie, in all my years speaking, had a person come up to me 6 months later after a presentation say, "Oh, Danny, you know what I love the most about your speech was that one PowerPoint slide that you had 18 bullet points that nobody could read because the font was so small." I've never had a person say that, but people remember stories. They remember when you get them to laugh. And so all of us have these stories. And even if every now and then I work with a difficult person that says they have no stories, which is totally a lie. All of us have stories. But even if you have no stories, I love reading personal development books. Look at one of the most successful personal development books of all time. It's called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, in which he shares no personal stories whatsoever. What he did is he interviewed a whole bunch of millionaires and told their stories. So that's another way to engage with audiences is to tell other people's stories. So now I'm rambling, but I get excited. You got me geeking out on this stuff.
Well, I agree with you. I think story is really powerful and also really interesting. Like that's why memoirs are usually so popular. Have you
Absolutely.
ever gotten up on stage and just bombed or panned?
Of course. I mean, does a fish get wet? Does a boxer get punched in the face? Of course.
Yeah.
You live and learn. There's again the two ways that you get better at speaking is you watch speakers and then you got to do your reps. I mean, especially with humor, because nowadays everybody has to be offended by something. Sometimes a joke doesn't work in Indiana, so I'm like, is it Indiana or is it the joke? So then I try it in Georgia. I'm like, didn't work in Georgia either. Maybe it's the joke. Then I try it in, Saskatchewan. They're not laughing either. Canadians laugh at everything. It must be the joke. So I have to, experiment with things. But the structure I show people, I can tell you for a fact, it works. So when I was in India, I was just in India there to observe schools. Well, the very first school I visit, the principal opens up the door. There's an auditorium with 5,000 kids in the auditorium. There's like 20 newspapers, five TV stations. And he introduces me. He says, and now for the next hour, Dr. Brassell is going to teach us the three secrets to reading better. Whoa, Katie. Nobody's told me I'm speaking, and I have no such speech, but I got 5,000 kids in front of me. I got media. So fortunately, it's India, so I get to slow down my speech. So I look at the kids, I'm like, today I am going to teach you the three secrets to reading better. Who wants to learn the three secrets to reading better? And the kids are going wild. And in my head, I'm like, what the heck are the three secrets to reading better? And basically, using the structure I just shared with you, the five C's, I quickly put together a presentation in 30 seconds, which was broadcast to 1.5 billion people that evening, and now is one of my companies based on that presentation. First time I ever, and it wasn't the best. I mean, now I've delivered that presentation. Actually, after that, I was getting requested, and actually, the story I told you about the little boy, I was requested now to speak at another school. Everybody's, oh, we need to hear this speech. Wound up doing about 20 speeches throughout India, but that was all just using the five C's approach, is how that came about.
Well, sounds like you're pretty quick on your feet then, if you can come up with the three made up reasons for reading that quickly.
I used to teach kindergarten. I always call kindergarten teaching New York, New York. If you can make it there, you can make it anywhere because you got to be quick. I mean, that's what my policy is. I take my job seriously. I don't take myself too seriously because I ain't all that, and neither are you. And if you think you're all that, Katie, teach kindergarten for a week. Those kids will, the little ones will set you straight. One of my little girls one day, LaShonda, raises her hand. I'm like, LaShonda, question. She's like, Miss Brassell, when are you going to trim your nose hair? I'm like, this afternoon. Thanks for bringing that to my attention, LaShonda. I ain't all that. And so I actually, having taught all age levels, the little ones taught me how to have fun every single day. And so what? So what? Even if I bomb, it's 1 hour out of my life or 7 minutes out of my life, however long the presentation is, and it changes your entire perspective when you realize, the world is not going to end if I bomb. Maybe they're never going to book me again. That's possible, but the world's not going to end.
Right? And you get a fun story out of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. See, exactly. Now you're learning is, hey, your misery is usually where the humor comes in, and you can
Yeah.
laugh about it later.
I think it's cool. And I think the exercises that you've shared are really helpful. And especially, sitting down and writing down different stories that people have experienced in their own lives. Like, how often do we reflect on that and really think about all the stories that we all probably have individually?
Absolutely.
Do you have any other advice or anything else that you would want to share that I haven't asked that you think could be helpful?
I guess I'll end with the same thing I used to say to all of my classes, whether I was teaching my little ones or my older ones, as they exited my classroom for the day. I always reminded them, remember, kids, education is valuable, but execution is priceless. Knowledge is not power. Only applied knowledge is power. Knowing what the right thing to do and doing the right thing are two very, very different things. Let's go out, do the right thing, make this world a better place. And I thank you for giving me this time.
Well, thank you so much again for joining and taking the time. And it's been really informative. And I think that I will probably also speak better as a result. So thank you.
Great. Thanks, Katie.
All right. Take care. If you'd like to learn more about Danny's tips for authentic storytelling, be sure to check out his free blueprint for creating a well-crafted story available at freestoryguide.com. It's also linked in the episode description. Also, if you're looking to create more balance and find more fulfillment, which often involves building self-confidence and crafting a new story for yourself, you can check out my website at takeabeatcoaching.com to learn more about an 8-week one-on-one coaching program to help you get there in a step-by-step approach. I hope this episode was helpful. Thanks for listening, and take care.